Be sure to dive into the comments and share this video with your friends and fellow enthusiasts of tales. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button on the screen to join Inquisco for more authentic and captivating stories like this one. 3 months had slipped by, and the rent was still unpaid each time his name appeared on my phone. A tightness gripped my stomach. Mr. Harris, the keeper of my dwelling, never before had I found myself in such a predicament. But circumstances had conspired against me. And now I found myself in quite the predicament. Upon my arrival at the building, he was but a fleeting shadow in my periphery. He carried himself with a certain grace, exuding professionalism, though perhaps he leaned a touch too heavily into seriousness. Yet, the past few months have unfolded in a different manner. Each encounter crackled with energy. The way his gaze held mine stretched into a moment that felt like an eternity. The gentle lilt in his voice as he uttered my name. I convinced myself it was all just a figment of my imagination, yet, beneath the surface, uncertainty lingered within me. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a gentle knock echoed through my home, beckoning me to discover what awaited beyond the threshold. I had no reason to verify. I recognized him instantly. I paused, yet turning away from him was simply not a choice I could make. With a gentle push, I eased the door open. "Greetings," I uttered, mustering a strained grin. He rested against the doorframe, arms folded, a figure of quiet contemplation. "Good evening, Melissa." Once more it appeared, that soft, deliberate manner in which he uttered my name. I recognized the debt I carry, for it was I who set this tale in motion. "All I seek is a touch more time." He let out a breath through his nose, nodding with a deliberate slowness. For weeks now, those words have echoed through the air. I took a deep breath. "I understand. I am making an effort." His gaze danced across my form, not in a manner that seemed out of place, but just enough to send a shiver across my skin. I found myself in a simple tank top and shorts, nothing out of the ordinary, yet in that moment, I felt a profound sense of recognition. "I don't want to evict you," he said at last, "but you must offer me something in return." The manner in which he spoke caused my breath to catch in my throat. He was referring to wealth. Indeed, he was referring to money. Yet the manner in which he expressed it was something else entirely. I bit my lip. Though I don't possess it just yet, I am determined to uncover a solution. A muscle in his jaw tightened. He moved with a subtle grace, casting a quick glance down the hallway before crossing the threshold, just a little close enough that I could sense his warmth enveloping me. "Perhaps I might offer you a bit more time," he whispered, his voice dropping to a soft hush. In that moment, I ought to have taken a step back. In that moment, I knew I should have said no, yet I found myself frozen, unable to move. For a fleeting moment, his eyes wandered down to my lips. My breath quickened. What lay ahead was fraught with peril. Once upon a time, I found myself in the embrace of matrimony. He was married. Yet for the first time in months, a sense of empowerment surged within me. It was as if the weight of a decision rested upon my shoulders, and that thought filled me with a deeper fear than I had ever known. He remained right there. The atmosphere around us grew heavy, and I sensed my heartbeat racing. There I stood, caught in a whirlwind of anticipation and anxiety, teetering on the brink of the unknown. It was as if I were poised at the edge of a vast chasm, aware that a single step forward could unravel the very fabric of my existence, transforming everything in its wake. I found myself unable to fully grasp his essence. "Not entirely. Are you absolutely certain you don't wish for my assistance?" he inquired, his voice soft and tinged with an unsettling closeness. As if the topic of rent held deeper secrets between them, his gaze had drifted away from my face. They were captivated by the distance that lay between us. "What do you mean, assistance?" I found myself hesitating. The words spilled forth in a torrent, yet uncertainty lingered within me about whether I truly wished to hear his response. A warmth began to rise from the depths of my being, slowly making its way up my neck and enveloping my chest. He leaned in, just close enough for me to catch the subtle aroma of his cologne. There was an essence, rich and grounded, with a hint of warmth that danced on the senses, something I had overlooked until now. Yet it surged forth with an intensity that was hard to ignore. "I could help you," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. His hand lingered effortlessly on the doorframe, yet it hovered perilously near my arm, just an inch apart. But that closeness felt like an expanse of miles. I ought to have declined. I ought to have slammed the door in his face and retreated to my kitchen, a sanctuary where I could find my breath once more. Yet a force deep within me anchored me to that very place. Caught in the magnetic pull that bound us together, I find myself at a loss for words, my voice trembling like a fragile whisper. He drew nearer, so close that his breath caressed my skin, and I sensed an undeniable change in the atmosphere. In that fleeting moment, time seemed to stretch, and I came to the stark realization that I had erred gravely by choosing to open that door. "Melissa," He uttered my name once more, this time infused with a deeper meaning. It had transformed beyond the mere sound of his landlord's voice. It was the voice of someone who understood me in ways I wasn't prepared to acknowledge. The kind of voice that sent a flutter through my stomach. I don't want you to be in a tough spot, he continued, his gaze locking onto mine with a fervor that rendered my thoughts momentarily adrift. Yet, I find myself unable to continue offering you my time without some form of assurance. Once more, it appeared, confidence. He had moved beyond the mundane topic of rent. He was weaving a tale about something entirely different, a thought I wished to avoid. Yet it lingered in my mind, refusing to be dismissed. His hand moved seemingly by chance, grazing my arm. It was a whisper of a touch. Yet it coursed through me like a bolt of electricity. I tried to retreat. Yet my feet seemed to be anchored to the ground as if bound by an invisible force. I understand that I've fallen behind, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper now, revealing my truth. I understand, all I seek is a little more time. Yet he had turned away from my words, no longer attuned to my voice. His gaze was fixed on my lips, and in that moment, reality surged with an intensity that was almost overwhelming. The thought began to take shape in my mind, unstoppable and vivid. What if I simply leaned in and pressed my lips against his? What if I allowed myself to surrender to that persistent ache in my chest? Alas, I must decline. Once upon a time, I found myself bound in the sacred union of marriage. He had taken a vow of love and commitment. This was utterly wild. I took a step back, yet he remained steadfast, unmoving. Instead, he extended his hand, letting it linger just before my face. It wasn't a touch, not yet, but it lingered in the air, the warmth of his palm almost tangible. As if he were poised, anticipating my choice for us both. Melissa, he said again. And this time his voice had dropped even lower, softer, like a secret meant just for me. I seek nothing that you do not desire. My heart pounded fiercely as if it were on the verge of breaking free. I felt an overwhelming urge to turn my gaze, to flee, to break free from this predicament. Yet my feet remained rooted in place. His presence loomed large. And I felt a tremor of fear at the thought that if I dared to move too quickly, he might extend his hand and draw me back into his orbit. Don't make this harder than it has to be, he added, his hand finally resting on my arm. It wasn't aggressive, it wasn't insistent, but it was present, steady, comforting. And brimming with purpose, his thumb glided over my skin, and in that moment, it was as if a spark had been kindled deep within my chest. The weight in my chest grew heavier, wrapping around me like a vice. I felt a surge of urgency. A need to speak, to urge him to step back, to retreat, to cease. Yet the words remained trapped within me. My thoughts swirled. A tempest of emotions stirred by the electric sensation of his touch. I began, but my voice faltered and a wave of warmth flooded my cheeks. In moments past, I found myself lacking the ability to refuse, unable to utter that simple word to anyone. It was a struggle, especially when uncertainty clouded my judgment, and the desires of others seemed to sweep me along, urging me onward. You don't have to say anything, he murmured. And in that moment, it felt as if the entire world had vanished. There we were, just the two of us, poised in that shadowy hallway, where time seemed to hold its breath around us. The air was thick with tension, stretched tight like a drum, resonating with unspoken words between us. The rhythm of my heartbeat echoed in the air, a symphony of anticipation as his thumb brushed softly against my arm. The heat of his presence enveloped me, tantalizingly near yet just out of reach. Every fiber of my being urged me to halt this, to shatter the stillness, to distance myself from him. Yet, there was another part of me, weary of always adhering to the rules, yearning for a change, softly suggesting that perhaps I should simply surrender. Melissa, he whispered, his voice so near now that I could sense it resonating in my chest. I gazed up at him, and for a fleeting moment, the gravity of the situation lingered in the air between us, just a breath away from a truth I wasn't prepared to face. His face hovered inches from mine, his eyes probing, silently inquiring in a way that resonated deeply. Just when I believed he would draw me closer, just when I sensed the delicate boundary between right and wrong was about to blur, he retreated. It felt as though the enchantment had been lifted. He swept a hand through his hair, visibly as rattled as I felt. He began to speak, but his voice wavered, caught in the web of his thoughts. I ought not to have. I regret having pushed you in that way. His voice carried a weight of regret. Yet the tension lingered in the air. It lingered in the atmosphere, dense and palpable, as if it were biding its time for one of us to take that next step forward. Forgive me, I murmured, uncertain whether my words were meant for him, for my own heart, or for my husband. I never intended to. He paused once more, visibly wrestling with the search for the perfect words. I wish not to burden you further, simply. Just ensure the rent is taken care of. I nodded, taking a step back. Confusion enveloped me like a thick fog, leaving me more bewildered than I had ever been. My heart raced, thoughts swirling like leaves caught in a tempest. In that moment, solitude called to me, a whispering need for quiet reflection. In that moment, contemplation was essential. Thank you, I said, my voice softer than I intended. He nodded, and for a fleeting moment, we stood there, suspended in the almost shared experience, and then, just as swiftly as it began, he turned and walked away. I closed the door behind him, leaning against it as the adrenaline still coursed through my veins. A question lingered in my mind. Was it over, or was this merely the beginning of something new? The days that followed unfolded like a dream, each one extending its reach further than the one before. The sensation of that moment lingered, when he teetered on the edge of crossing the line. Each time I encountered him in the hallway or caught a glimpse of him in the yard, the atmosphere around us felt heavy, pulsating with an unspoken tension that we both endeavored to overlook. Yet, I could no longer turn a blind eye to it. Wasn't I meant to feel a sense of relief? He had taken a step back. He offered his sincerest apologies. All should have returned to the way it once was, yet it did not unfold that way. My mind kept wandering back to the way he gazed at me, as if he glimpsed something within. Something that caused him to pause yet held him captive in that moment. As I lay in bed, the darkness wrapped around me, my mind wandered to thoughts of him. I could almost hear the echo of his footsteps in the hallway, a haunting melody that danced through the silence. Even though I was fully aware it was merely a figment of my imagination, yet I knew I couldn't elude him for all time. As the night deepened, I found myself drawn into the familiar rhythm of anticipation, waiting for yet another message from him. His words flowed with clarity, each one striking a chord, unembellished yet powerful. Shall we have a conversation? Kindly allow me to share an explanation with you. Initially, I considered turning a blind eye to it. I considered playing it off as merely a simple misunderstanding, a fleeting lapse in judgment that I could easily attribute to a moment of weakness. Yet, the reality was that I found myself uncertain now. The boundaries had faded away. Confusion enveloped me, a swirling mist of emotions. Yet a singular truth emerged. I had to unravel the mystery of my own heart. With a nod of consent, I made my way to the courtyard of the building to meet him. He mentioned that the atmosphere was more serene in that place. The warm evening enveloped me as I stepped into the empty courtyard, a canvas of solitude awaiting my presence. There he was, poised by the bench, his back turned to me, a figure shrouded in mystery. He appeared transformed. His posture stood more rigid than usual. His hands were buried deep in his pockets, as if he were wrestling with the urge to let loose. With a steadying breath, I made my way toward him. Melissa, he spoke, his back still turned. I aim to ensure your comfort. I understand, I murmured, my voice revealing my emotions as I edged nearer. Yet the details elude me. I'm not quite sure how it all spiraled out of control. He turned to face me, and for a fleeting moment, silence enveloped us both. We simply gazed at one another, a shared comprehension blossoming in the quiet that had settled around us. I shouldn't have crossed that line, he said, his voice gravelly and filled with regret. However, I wish to speak candidly with you. A battle has been waging within me. I arched an eyebrow. What is there to battle against? He moved closer, narrowing the space between us until I could sense his presence wrapping around me. I've been wrestling with the emotions I have for you. The words struck me with the force of a sudden blow, even though I had anticipated their arrival. Yet, as the words escaped his lips, the admission sent my heart racing with a fervor I couldn't ignore. My thoughts drift like leaves in the wind. I wish to ease your burden, he continued. Yet, there was a transformation in his voice. It had shed its cloak of regret. It was a scene filled with urgency, teetering on the edge of despair. I wish to preserve the foundation we've created together, yet you linger in my thoughts. An unshakable presence. I found myself gasping for air. My knees trembled as he drew nearer. I realized it was time to take a step back. I felt the weight of the moment, a whisper urging me to speak up, to declare that this path was fraught with peril, that we were treading on dangerous ground. Yet, when he extended his hand and softly brushed against my arm, I found myself unable to retreat. I have no intention of causing you pain, he murmured softly, yet I find myself struggling to release what binds me. The atmosphere enveloped us, heavy and palpable. My pulse throbbed in my ears, and for a fleeting moment, the lines that defined my reality blurred into uncertainty. Everything seemed to hang in the balance, as if it were poised on the brink of an unknown fate that eluded my grasp. Words danced on the tip of my tongue, yet they remained trapped, ensnared in the depths of my being, waiting for the moment to break free. I am married, I finally whispered, as though uttering those words would somehow weave everything back together. Indeed, he replied. Though I understand your perspective, Melissa, this feeling within me is simply too strong to ignore. I'm curious to discover if your feelings mirror mine. His words lingered in the air between us, a palpable weight, and in that moment, I felt as though I stood at the precipice of a cliff, gazing into the vast unknown below. The decision lay in my hands, yet it seemed as though I lacked the fortitude to see it through. In a moment of vulnerability, I confessed, the words spilling forth like a torrent. Eager to escape my lips, indeed, he responded. I understand you might not have the answer at this moment, but I'm curious to know if you sense it as well. I'm curious to hear if you're ready to embrace the possibility of joining us on this journey. His gaze was piercing, delving into my own with a sincerity that sent shivers down my spine, igniting a mix of fear and exhilaration within me. My heart raced within my chest, each breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. I simply couldn't refuse it. A sensation had been stirring within me, a feeling that had been accumulating ever since that fateful night when he appeared at my doorstep. Yet, I found myself at a crossroads, knowing deep down that I mustn't allow it to unfold any further. But what if I truly did? A fleeting notion darted through my mind. Before I could catch it, what if I allowed myself to surrender to this? What would it be like to finally experience the warmth of being wanted? To feel the sweet embrace of desire? To have someone tend to the longing that has been eating away at me for months? He reached for me once more, his hand softly finding its place on my cheek, his thumb gliding tenderly across my skin. The warmth of his touch sparked a thrilling jolt of electricity within me. My breath hitched in my throat, and for a fleeting moment, the world around me faded away. The outcomes, the decisions, the individuals who would feel the impact. In that moment, I stood on the brink of a decision, yet, just as I surrendered to the moment, his face drawing near, the unmistakable sound of footsteps reverberated through the courtyard, I stood still, my heart momentarily halting in its rhythm. The footsteps echoed, quickening in intensity, and I recoiled, my eyes wide with fear. It was he, my beloved partner. I turned, struggling to catch my breath as I saw him emerge from around the corner. His expression stern, his eyes brimming with an emotion I couldn't quite understand. Melissa, he uttered, his tone chilling. I believed I had asked you to remain indoors. In that fleeting instant, as my heart raced and my thoughts whirled, it dawned on me that everything was on the brink of transformation. Had the moment passed us by, had we ventured too deep into the unknown, I gazed at Mr. Harris, the man I had nearly allowed to step over the threshold, and then turned my attention back to my husband, who now stood merely a few feet away. My heart raced within me, a relentless drumbeat, and I understood that retreat was not an option, not any longer. Tap the subscribe button on your screen to join Inquisco for more captivating and authentic tales like this one.